Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking the Silence podcast. My name is Sean McBride. I'm joined today by Natasha Ramlall, who is an embodied integration coach specializing in identity rupture, which is a fascinating topic that we're definitely going to dive into. Natasha, as you know, I'm a huge fan of your work. We were, lucky enough to actually have our team experience one of your healing sessions, which was absolutely, I want to say, innovative and spiritual and uplifting. And really, I just love the way that you brought in, primal elements and literally the primal elements themselves into something that is normally seen as just a mental issue or something just dealing with the mind. So I'm really glad to have you on today. Thanks for coming out today.
Oh, thank you, Sean. It's my pleasure to be here. And thank you for the kind words. It means a lot to me to hear your feedback from the actual experience of the session that we did. Um, and I agree with you. I think that a lot of what is an obstacle to our ability to evolve past our suffering is this idea that it's strictly a mental game and we have to figure out how to reframe and change the mindset and positive affirmation our way through. And although those practices are absolutely valid and they have a role in it and can be beautifully cathartic, it's just not enough because we're not just mental beings here. We are multifaceted. And so, in order to make any kind of progress, we need to be attending to our multifaceted humanness in everything that we're doing. So, yeah, thank you, though, for that kind introduction.
For sure. No, it's beautifully well said. I couldn't agree more. And, working where I work and in the field I work, you're right. Like even our mutual friend, Nicole Brown-Faulkner, she always says, we live up here like 98% of our life. And we don't realize, your body is constantly giving you signals, your emotions, people dismiss emotions. That was one of the biggest things that actually stands out to me. I mean, the whole event, I want to call it an event because it really was just a liberation and a celebration of, all the different facets. But the one that really stuck out to me the most was going around stomping and listening to Rage Against the Machine. And, I was talking to you a little bit before we got on the show, and I think that's really the biggest kind of caged emotion in our society. You're not allowed to be upset. You're not allowed to be angry. You can cry, crying is becoming a lot more acceptable. Smiling, of course, is always acceptable. But why do you think that anger is perceived as such a negative or volatile emotion?
Yeah, anger is sort of the last frontier of those emotions that we're able to access and express in a healthy way generally. And I think, one of the main reasons is that, watching somebody else express emotion is really uncomfortable, including sadness. Like I think that we still have a lot of work to do around that as well in terms of, allowing somebody to be in the depths of their feelings, their grief, their tears, their whatever, without sort of trying to fix it or trying to take away that emotion. But you're right, crying and kind of connecting with the sadness that we sometimes experience is definitely a lot more socially acceptable. And I think that when we're children, it really begins there because we have these adults that we're looking to who are modeling for us acceptable and unacceptable ways to be in the world that are going to allow us to, feel like we deserve to be here. And if our adult caregivers, and the majority of adult caregivers are, because the majority of people are, if they are uncomfortable with seeing their child express anger, they're going to shut it down. And so from a very young age, we learn because we're, as infants, we are completely dependent on our caregivers to survive. And that doesn't just go away. As we move through the ages, as we become toddlers and older children, and we start to sort of exert a little bit more independence and start to find a little bit more connection with the truth of who we are still looking at our caregivers as our sort of tether to survival. And
Yeah.
so if we receive messaging from them, whether it's explicit or subtle, that something we're doing, a way that we're being, an emotion that we're enacting is not pleasing to them,
Hmm.
we're going to turn it on ourselves and say, oh, this is dangerous for me to
Yeah.
feel. And so oftentimes we will suppress anger from a very young age and learn to shove it down and not let it express. Um, and so then what happens as we get older is we don't want other people to express their anger because it's reminding us or triggering something that is, you know, at a depth, something that we're carrying in our body, in our fascia, in our energy, in our nervous system. And so it's like an explicit reminder. So we don't like it from that lens.
Yeah.
Um, and even, doing embodied integration work with my clients, what we'll often find is that they have a lot of fear about touching into that anger because it feels like if I open the door a crack, it is going to overwhelm me and I will
Yeah.
never be able to put it back in that bottle. Like it's just anger is a very scary emotion to experience because it really does feel like if I if I'm not in control of my rage, I could hurt somebody.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
hurt myself, I could hurt another person, I could break something, I could do damage in the physical realm. And that is a really scary thing. So, for all of those reasons, we really, really resist connecting in a real and honest way with our anger. And also, because of that, a third reason I'll just throw into the mix
Yeah. No, of course.
that because so many people are suppressing anger, the anger that we usually see is an unhealthy, more toxic expression of anger. So when we think about if I let my anger come out, it's going to look like that abusive adult in my life that
Yeah.
I remember, or it's going to look like violence, or it's going to look like um, attacking my coworker. And of course, nobody wants to allow or embrace those things into their experience. But what we need to understand is that when we are connecting to our anger from the right energy and with the right understanding and the right intention, we're actually connecting to our anger in a healthy way. And connecting to anger in a healthy way is not going to express in all of those scary, violent, sort of tropes of what anger looks like
Yeah.
in our day to day. Yeah.
Yeah. No, wow. Thanks for that. Totally enlightening. I always find it interesting too, because, if you see anybody playing a professional sport, if you were to take away the context of that sport, they would seem angry. They would seem
Mhm.
furious on the court, especially, you take a tennis player, right? Remove the racket and the setting, and it's all, guttural yells or even look at, rock music, they seem super angry. It's just passion, right? And I think you're right. Like that's the biggest thing. We have these associations that are established very on that anger can't be just, expressed. It's either nothing or over the top. This person's going to hit me. This person's going to terrify me. This person's going to, like you said, do damage or break something. And yeah, I actually, since, we did your workshop, I really feel personally that, I've had a much more healthy viewpoint on my anger. And the
Mhm.
other thing I've noticed too is that I can catch it, right? So when I get upset at something small, now I sit there and I'm like, well, is it really worth, going 0 to 100 over? Not really. And 90% of the time, it's like, no, because I've been repressing that anger, like you said, So, when I do my meditation and whatnot now, I kind of, it's like, I almost picture it like letting out the seal of the pressure cooker, right? Just
Mm.
open it a little, let it cool out, and then you're good to go again. And, it builds up. You get cut off in traffic, or someone forgets part of your Tim's order or something. And, slowly that bank account builds up, and you just let it back out. And, like I said, I mean, it was very changing to me. It was really good for changing my mindset. In your work, I'm assuming, do you find many people that are going through addiction? Or, so like I said, I mean, it really changed my mindset and really helped me be more mindful and cognizant of my feelings, not just anger, but just anything. It kind of is like a checks and balances now, where I sit there and saying, like, you have X amount of energy per day. Is this really worth investing in sadness? Is it really worth investing in frustration? And I found frustration was usually the biggest one. Me just finding things frustrating and then kind of taking that back step and being like, it's not, it's just a thing, like, for instance, I'm a very good driver. I don't get road rage at all. But when someone, for instance, doesn't see that the lane is closed due to construction, and at the last minute they want to come in, used to be something that just absolutely infuriated me. And then what I started doing, and like I said, especially since I took your workshop, is sitting there and saying, well, maybe that person is just not observant as I am, or maybe they've got a lot going on, and almost kind of reassuring myself that it's not necessary. Do you find that a lot of people need multiple classes with you to kind of feel an effect, or is it one of those things where they can be like one and done and have a big change?
Oh, such a great question. But the thing of, humans are just so individual and so nuanced that honestly, the experience is so varied from person to person to person. And also, the experience in the session that we did, which was focused on embodied dance as our main modality. Yeah, so there's the nuance in individuals and how they not only hold their survival patterns and interact with their survival patterns, but also how easy it is for them to remember their embodiment. And I say remember because there are definitely levels to the extent that we're able to connect with the sensations in our body. Oftentimes, if people have a lot of trauma in their lives, they'll dissociate from feeling anything and it becomes habitual. So it's really hard for them. Like you say, what can you feel in your body? And they kind of look at you like you've got three heads. What do you mean? I don't even know what that feels like or what
Yeah.
that means. So you've got, that end of the spectrum all the way to the other end where there are some people who have been very embodied and very grounded their whole lives. So it's quite varied in terms of how people react to the work and how much time it takes and how powerful it feels for some people. And I've had people attend, and in the first session, sort of like what you're describing, something really fundamental shifted
Mhm.
and it opened them up to a completely new way of being in relationship with the idea of embodying themselves more fully.
Yeah.
And then I've also had people where it's been sort of a slow unfolding, where it's, over time and with consistency and really coming to an experience of reliable safety over and over and over again has been key. And so that could be in a group setting, or it could also be in a one-to-one client relationship.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so sometimes very quick, and sometimes um, it seems like nothing's happening. And eventually we do see the difference. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question actually,
Oh
but
yeah, no, no, 100%
I'll
for
let you
sure.
take it from there regardless.
No, for sure. Awesome. It does answer my question. Actually, I was always just curious, especially when you get in a group setting. Every time I complain, see, it's almost like it knows what we're talking about here, right? my frustration is changing the wavelength. And no,
Asking
that
you to prove yourself. Like,
yeah,
really? You're over the
yeah.
frustration?
You
Let's
want me
see
to
it.
push you? Okay, let's see. Let's hit that
Let's
button.
see. Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm on a spiritual path or a psychological path. I'm not going to get angry anymore, or I'm not going to have a bad day. It's like everybody has a bad day. It's really more, I find, about how long you sit in that bad feeling or
Mm.
not welcome feeling, and B, how quickly you can pull yourself back out of it. So for me, like, yeah, of course, that person who doesn't see the lane closure still bothers me, but not to the point it used to be where I'm, 6, 7 blocks away and I'm still like, oh, that guy. Now it's more like, okay, I'm upset. I don't like that you did that, but I'm not going to let it, funkify my entire existence. Right. So
That's a
it's
great
all
term, funkify. Yeah.
funkify. Yeah. I
I think what you're touching on is really, really important. In the same way that, we might talk about our cardiovascular health. If you're not necessarily working out regularly and then you kind of sprint up the street, it is going to take a lot more time for your heart to sort of come back into a regular rhythm and for you to stop breathing heavily, right? But if you are constantly um, working out your heart so that this accelerated uh, usage is more regular in your life. I'm not choosing the greatest words here, but you
no,
get the
no,
idea.
totally follow. Yeah.
And it will come back to regulation much sooner. And so we have a similar thing called vagal tone, which
Hmm.
is really connected to the nervous system. And if you are regularly practicing ways of regulating your nervous system, and this is something that you're doing ongoing and that you're aware of, and that all the different parts of you are supporting, yeah, those moments where you come out of regulation, you'll be able to come back to a more balanced state more quickly.
For sure. No, I totally agree with that. And it's like anything else, right? It's like that first time going to the gym. But I think I'm at my limit for frustration. As much as honestly, I've loved this talk. Like,
Yeah.
whenever, like with you especially, like I could get into everything you do, all the different aspects. Like even when it comes to the group and singular thing, like I'm interested to know, what the difference is and what differences you noticed, and then talking about identity rupture more. Like I'd have to have you on the podcast probably 4 or 5 more times just to get everything I want out. It's the double-edged sword, like I told you the other day. The podcast, as much as it's for everybody else, it's also for me. I just find everything to do with the mind and the body and all that fascinating. So when I find someone cool to talk to about it who's very knowledgeable, I sometimes have to keep myself on track. So no, thanks a lot. I had a really good talk. Maybe one time we could have you by the center and actually have more people get involved, more of the staff. That'd be great to have you back.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that would be fun.
yeah, no, we enjoyed it greatly. I found it was very freeing, and as you know, Chaser, yeah, she definitely had a very profound reaction to it, which stuck with her. We've talked about it a few times actually. So
It means a
um,
lot to me that the experience stuck with you and also with Chaser. It really does. Thank you for sharing that because,
for
you
sure.
know, it means a lot.
No, absolutely. And just so you know, Natasha, I'm not one to placate or, tell people things that I don't feel.
Really? Really, I wouldn't have guessed that about
Yeah, no, I know, right?
you.
I know.
Being very sarcastic.
I'm I'm super sarcastic. Trust me. I
You're a
feel it.
straight shooter, Sean. I can tell
Thanks.
that right away.
Thanks. You know what it is? I don't have the mental capacity to remember lies I tell, so I just tell the truth. Makes things a little not enough RAM up here. So I'm just like, that way I don't have to be like, wait, what did I tell you versus what I told them? So, but no,
Yeah.
I love the work you're doing. I find it so funny about almost referring you to Nicole the other day. You know what? It was April Fool's. You totally should have let me. You should have been like, oh, really? What does she do? And just totally egged me on. Would have been
You're
awesome.
the
She would have,
best. It
I
was
know.
right
It was
there.
right there. I didn't think
Ah,
about it until I was like driving home, and I'm like, if I were you, I totally would have been like, Nicole,
ah,
you know?
damn. We're just not meant to be pranksters, you and I. We're just
No,
not of
no,
that
we're too
stamina.
soft.
Too soft.
Too
Damn.
soft.
Well, anyway, I'll remember that if it ever becomes a thing that I can do.
Next year, yeah, we'll keep it in the back pocket. And like I said, limited capacity, so I'll forget all about it. It was perfect. Awesome, Natasha. Thank you again, for joining us today. Just as a quick sign off, where can people find you in the digital world? What's the best website or email?
Mm, Honestly, the best way is to go straight to my website, which is humanistcoaching.ca. And I have a really great free audio right now that, if you're able to share with the listeners, is a really wonderful way to regulate your nervous system. All that you need to be able to do is breathe and lay yourself down in a comfortable position. So hopefully that's enticing for anyone who feels like they could use a little bit of support in those moments where things are feeling.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Always a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too, Sean. This was great. Take care.
Awesome. Have a great long weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Natasha.